Avoidance.
Envy.
Avoidance.
Envy.
Don't they go so well together hand in hand?
Yes, they do.
So in this video, we'll talk about why avoidance is so motivated and driven by envy.
Specifically dismissive avoidance, but to a smaller extent, fearful avoidance.
Of course, because we've got to address the different types of avoidance here.
Yes.
My name is David.
I'm Renee, and for the last 16 years, we've been coaching people in dating, relationships, and in healing their attachment pathology.
So, why are avoidants more driven by envy than others? Well, first of all, envy runs the world. Let's just state the obvious, because it's the great Charlie Munger, rest in peace. He stated that the world doesn't run on greed; it runs on envy, and I think that's very insightful. There's envy everywhere around us. It's just that most of us are good at regulating it and doesn't go out of control. However, that is different when you have insecure attachment styles. And why is that?
There's a couple of good reasons. Number one, it's because dismissive avoidants never actually got the opportunity to regulate their emotions. They were never given that sense of closeness to a caregiver, especially one reliable caregiver, where that proximity with a caregiver allowed them to build a resilient nervous system that can regulate difficult emotions. And such a primal emotion like envy tends to be one of those that will run out of control and go all kinds of directions and become totally destructive when you have no ability to regulate your emotions. It's not that dismissive avoidants don't have emotions. It's the fact that because they avoid vulnerability, they are unable to not only process, but to form bonds with others. And that brings me to the second reason why dismissive avoidants are so driven by envy. It's because they preemptively push connection, emotional intimacy, and vulnerability away and out of their awareness, not out of decision, but because it's precognitive. So the avoidant is not only unable to form intimacy in close relationships, but because of their lack of ability to form and build upon that intimacy with others, they approach all of their relationships around them with a sense of separation. And it's this sense of separation that has them driven by this concept of wanting the longer end of the stick always. And what this means is if you are in a relationship with a dismissive avoidant, the dismissive avoidant will see that when you get something good, they don't share and revel in that alongside you. They see that you've gotten more than they have. So whatever you get more of, they get less of. And it comes out in all kinds of toxic little comments, the little looks where you'll see that they're not having your back, they're not being close with you, but rather they're either criticizing you or feeling a sense of indignation or anger that you have achieved something or gotten something more than them or have higher self-esteem than they do. Because at the end of the day, they can't build upon anything good through their close relationships.
And yeah, that's a resource that most people have that the severely dismissive avoidant don't have. They don't have that resource, that they'll never really truly have that resource. So they'll always have something that they feel like is missing that someone else has over them, right? And they see the world through the lens of a zero-sum game where the more people have, the less they have. So it's always that sense of competition, that me versus the world, that drives their envy over and over and over. And secure people have greater capacity to modulate their own stress and emotions. They have more ways, more capacity, more strategies in dealing with things, especially things like envy, because envy runs through every single one of us. It's just how we deal with that envy that determines what we do, what we say, and the actions that we take. So it is how we regulate that envy. So for example, secure people may go to their relationships as a way to regulate that envy.
Yeah.
They may have the capacity to magnify what they have in order to minimize the potential envy.
Because secure people just have much more emotional and psychological resourcefulness to build upon good things in their lives. And they tend to get better at it, which means they get more emotionally resourceful and they build even more upon the positive avenues that they've built previously. And if you look into the research, the academic research, specifically secure attachment, you would see that securely attached individuals have what Mario Michelinsa and Shaver call broaden and build. It's a broaden and build approach that the securely attached nervous system has towards solving adaptive problems and getting through hard times and adversities. So a secure person goes through something difficult, whether it be romantic rejection, failure, or loss, grief, and they have the memories and the associations and the emotional connections with those memories that allows them to speak the voice of their caregivers that is secure, loving, nurturing, and encouraging. And when they work that muscle, kind of like when you work your bicep at the gym, it gets stronger, it gets more mature, and they just become highly resourceful. And insecurely attached people, whether it be anxious, fearful avoidant, dismissive avoidant, don't have broaden and build, okay? It is, I'm going to say something that insecurely attached people may find triggering, but just know as a fellow anxiously attached person who's been healing for a long time, I say this because it's true. It's kind of almost the opposite for us. It's more like...
collapse and die. Basically.
It's basically diminish and disappear, because insecurely attached people have something called negative affect, which is basically the term in psychology for intense, unregulatable, if that's even a word, negative emotions. And these negative emotions get out of hand because they've got no memories and anchors for secure attachment. And yeah, it just... Anyone who's been anxiously attached understands the negative me, positive you view inside of close relationships where you tend to see yourself negatively. And it's really hard to get out of it. The negative effect is just like a negative spiral. I kind of like to think of it and describe it as if you're walking around with this rainy cloud above your head and it just keeps following you around until you learn to regulate and until you develop a positive sense of identity. But that's for another video.
It kind of reminds me of the concept of Antifragile, which is also a book. So secure people have more capacity and the resourcefulness to be more anti-fragile. So when they go through stress, it makes them stronger, as opposed to retreating and withdrawing, which is more what fragility kind of describes. And so when you are secure, you have just way more ability to deal with that external stress and come out the other end stronger, as opposed to someone who's insecurely attached, and therefore that stress makes them minimize their world and avoid. That's what they do. So as a result, if you are not able to broaden and build, so to speak, then everything else seems just insurmountable, all the other problems. And therefore you envy those who are able to tackle those issues seemingly effortlessly sometimes, right? So there's these big hurdles that insecure individuals, especially avoidants, they're not able to even look at, let alone address. And this is also why research has shown that secure people tend to set bigger goals, and broader goals.
And to follow through with them.
As opposed to insecure individuals making way smaller little goals, and they don't really want to think about goals in that sense.
And because they know that they can't handle failing at those goals as well. So it's not just about the fact that they don't want to set those goals and set less goals and are less likely to follow through with it. It's the fact that they actually cannot process, can't regulate the emotions related to failure. So whereas, secure people are much more self-forgiving of failure.
Because they have the nervous system that their parents allowed them to fail and learn from the experience. That's how a secure nervous system operates. That's what you've learned. You learn to regulate, modulate your own nervous system. And this is why, like, even with our kids, we put our first two sons, we've got three sons, we put them into jiu-jitsu competitions, and they both did exceedingly well. Our first son, at age 9, got to #1 in the world in grappling industries in a specific jiu-jitsu comp at age 9 for under 12s. And under 18s.
Oh, under 18s, sorry.
He's ranked #1 in the world.
Under 18s. And for anyone who's done BJJ or jiu-jitsu knows it's that's really in competition. It's really about facing adversity, and it takes a tough individual to keep going back and to lose, because at the end of the day, it's literally just you losing. It's not a team sport. And so, we introduced that for our kids because we wanted to introduce the adversity and wanted to bring them through that experience with us present, with us behind them, with us having their back, so that they go into adult life with those memories and know that they can overcome the worst days of their lives. And securely attached parents are much more likely to do things like this, are much more likely to put it all out there in the open, to let their kids fail and to support them when they fail. Whereas if you have an insecurely attached parent who passes on some form of insecure attachment, they are likely to pull away once their kid fails once or twice, or are so fearful of failing that they traumatize and abuse the child in the process of competing. And we've seen that over and over again. And it's just, that child grows up with no healthy sense of esteem and broaden and build approach to problems.
They need to learn how to deal with failures.
Yeah.
They need to learn how to deal with adversity. And that's the whole point of putting them in jiu-jitsu competitions. It wasn't to just win. I mean, we all love to win, but that's not the point here.
Yeah.
If you're just going in to win, you're missing the whole point.
Yeah. And so with regards to envy, the crucial thing here about avoidance not being able to control their envy and being driven by it is not just that what you resist persists. In other words, the avoidant blocks out emotion, therefore it hits them harder, it follows them harder. It's the fact that envy for the human race in general tends to go undetected by the conscious mind. And that type of emotion and envy is very specific to that demeanor, that mindset, that lack of awareness. You tend to go to destruction if you're not aware. And so if someone like an avoidant who already diminishes the value of other people, of goals, of achievement, of investing in themselves emotionally and psychologically, they're not resourceful enough to deal with an emotion that's already vulnerable to going undetected.
They'll just choose the path of least resistance, whatever that may be for them.
Destruction.
And it's usually destructive in some way. Because it takes a lot more resourcefulness to use envy in positive ways, because envy is going to be there regardless of whether you like it or not. It's how you use it that's going to determine what ends up happening. Whether you build relationships or burn bridges, whether you write bigger goals and create something bigger for yourself, or you try and go out and destroy someone else's creations. So it's up to you how you deal with envy. And insecurely attached people tend to not have the resourcefulness and the ability to be aware of their own emotions enough to deal with it in positive ways.
They'll destroy and act out or hurt others before ever trying to regulate anything within themselves, or let alone be aware of it. I mean, being aware of it is the first step, but being aware of envy is hard enough for even normal people on a good day, So envy in the hands of a dismissive avoidant, be careful, I wouldn't trust a dismissive avoidant to have my back any day of the week. And so knowing that they already push away all kinds of emotions because they just can't regulate. They can't let themselves be vulnerable, and they don't trust human relationships.
They lose a huge part of what makes us resourceful as human beings.
What you
relationships.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I can point out the obvious here, and that is that not everyone in life starts off in the same spot financially, emotionally, psychologically. And some people come into the world legitimately attachment challenged or relationship challenged, meaning some of us have no one who have our backs. Even if we have so-called parents or a so-called parent, not that parent doesn't always have our back. And this makes the whole envy issue worse for insecurely attached individuals, because not only are they unable to regulate it or recognize it's there some of the time, they have no one to lean on. And so it's even worse. They have to contract their world even more and block everything out even more. And then they're less likely to go out and see things that trigger envy. They're less likely to challenge themselves. They're less likely to take a plunge or a leap of faith and to invest in their emotional and psychological growth. So I guess my point is that we can't expect everyone to not be exposed to envy, but that the spiral is just really bad and really hard for dismissive avoidance.
So, of course, we're not saying that avoidants are all bad people. We're just saying it is what it is, right? If they came into this world with this deficit, not because of their own fault, but that's how it is. That's how generational trauma begets more generational trauma. So the fact that they didn't get that nurture, which, by the way, it's a ton of energy and resources upon the parents. They didn't get that, and therefore they are crippled, emotionally crippled, basically for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that it's their fault, not at all. But it is something to be aware of. And the power here is that to understand this framework, to understand others, that's where the power is. And then you can, of course, understand yourself and understand if you're insecurely attached, which is the direction in order to heal.
And I think, a lot of us have had experiences of being the target of an envy attack. And by an envy attack, I mean when someone envies us and they launch subconsciously or consciously an attack in order to destroy the privilege that they believe subconsciously that we do not deserve. And that's the sheer destructiveness that envy can entail. So I guess if you have a story of being the victim of an envy attack, or if you have dished out an envy attack yourself, let's talk about it. Let's get envy out there in the open, because I think, again, we don't want to demonize dismissive avoidance or any insecurely attached individual for not having the emotional resources to regulate difficult emotions and big emotions, because it is literally not their fault. It's just that there are consequences for that upon other people. Envy is just one of those things that's ubiquitous everywhere you go. And a lot of us are in denial about other people envy us, because that's one of the strategies that humans actually use to deal with envy. I think that's the first step when it comes into our conscious awareness that a friend or a close lover or someone's envious of us. Our first step, I think, is to deny, according to research, that there is anything to envy, right? So let's talk about envy. Let's get it out there, have a discussion about it, because it's kind of that one emotion no one wants to admit to, because then comes shame and perceived lower status. But envy is also here to serve.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It can serve you in many, many beneficial ways for you and the world. It's not all bad. So let's use envy rather than let envy use us.
Yeah, that's right. And I have two popular and much loved articles on my blog, thefemininewoman.com, on envy. So the signs someone envies you, and I forget the title now. It's been a couple of years since I wrote it. Also, if you want to go deeper with us on the topics of dating, relationships, and life in general, go to Renee's links.
We'll put all the links down below anyway.
Yeah.